my sciatica.
Well, it is now official. No more regular season, no extended version of the playoffs, and for the first time since 1904, no World Series, Brendan.
It's not pretty. Yogi Berra said it ain't over till it's over. He was talking about the 73 Mets. Now Yogi could say this one's definitely over. The World Series has been played on in the midst of two world wars, in the midst of the Depression era, but now in 1994, in the midst of the greed era in Major League Baseball. No World Series. No more baseball this year.
On August 12th, the players walked out. The baseball season was suspended indefinitely. The owners were prepared to wait them out, confident that the union would give in.
And all we have been trying to find out is how much more do they want?
This dispute arises because the clubs could not get their own internal house in order.
Here is Bob Costas.
And the other shoe has finally dropped in the ongoing baseball wars. The acting commissioner, Bud Selig, the owner of the Milwaukee Brewers, has just made it official. The remainder of the regular season and the entire postseason, playoffs and World Series have officially been canceled. This news release was just issued.
When they agreed to cancel the World Series, I remember thinking that this is something you didn't think was going to happen, and that it really did prove how much these two sides really, really hated each other and how little they thought of the public.
Basically what? They're arguing over how to spend our money, right? You know, I mean, I'm a baseball fan. I like to see them play ball, but I have no sympathy for either party. None.
When the season ended after 117 games, Tony Gwynn's batting average was .394. Felipe Alou and the Montreal Expos were in first place in their division with a 6-game lead over the powerful Atlanta Braves. They would never find out if they were in fact the best team in baseball.
This was the strike of the millionaires versus the billionaires.
I'm not going to another game. I'm not going to pay the prices that go into the players' pockets and into management's wallets. I'm not going to do it. I'm sick of all of them. And then Ripken comes along.
What is crack-a-lackin', everybody? It's the old Cranky Gamer coming from the nursing home. And yes, I know, listen, I know I got Stardew Valley and I got RimWorld. I will get back to those. I promise. It's the holiday season and things are, things get a little hectic around this time. And it's my fault. It's my fault. I have other things going on. So I will get back to those series, along with bringing more, The Outer Worlds. But during this time, it's what in baseball is called, the hot stove season. And as a Phillies fan, I'm getting at least decent news coming out of, the winter meetings. So I sat here and said, well, I had something set up that I was doing outside of videos. Now, what I am going to do is, because of the strike, baseball was upheaved, okay, in my little universe. I am creating a dynamic universe. You may have seen some on the thumbnails of what I am going to pursue, but we are going to have a massive expansion of 4 teams. And you can see Bob Costas, because that's what happened. Bud Selig got booted out because he has no leadership ability, and he kowtows to the owners. And so Bob Costas has come into play, and Bob Costas has done a couple of things. First, he got rid of the DH. Hooray! No more frickin' DH. You have to play the field, and you have to, if you hit, you have to play the field. And that is going to have some ramifications for some of these players. Harold Baines, for one. I like to see what Harold Baines is going to do. Edgar Martinez. I like to see what Edgar Martinez is going to do. Both of those were recently, guys were recently inducted into the Hall of Fame. And will they still be, even with their bad defense, will they still be able to have Hall of Fame careers? Will they, or will the managers, will they get a manager that is more defense oriented and makes Edgar Martinez just be a third baseman, first baseman, pinch hitter, backup, corner infielder, backup, and number 1 pinch hitter? Who knows? But we have some changes and some new teams that Bob Costas has put into place. And we also have a lot of PED suspensions. So let's go over there. We got the Atlanta Braves. And the Atlanta Braves, of course, is going to have Ted Turner. The Ted Turner who made the horrible mistake of marrying Jane Fonda well past her prime and paid for it. And he has his front office of Sherholtz and Bobby Cox, and of course one of the greatest pitching coaches ever, Leo Mazzone. And I've always liked Clarence Jones as a hitting coach as well. The roster's transaction, all right, as you can see, well, there's the disabled list. Oh, no. Yeah, this is what I have. I have these guys on the disabled list. Do I have anything? Waivers disabled? No. I think I placed everybody. Hopefully I placed everybody correctly. Now, I made it so that the active roster has 26 players instead of 25. So Bob Costas said, listen, a lot of guys, we did a surprise PED test, and there are a lot of people that have been banned. And now what I did was basically grabbed a bunch of people, I exported it out, and I grabbed a bunch of the players that had high controversy, low work ethic, because they all have personality traits. As you can see with David Justice, right? It shows his personality here. He's known to chastise teammates. He's also known to slap his wife around, asshole. And what he is outspoken, and he's got 190 greed, 114 work ethic, so he's not really big on that one, but he's got the controversy, so that's where he got it. Yeah, greed was one of those aspects that I had to, was greed. And so he has been suspended for 154 games. That is another change that we've done. No 162 games. We're going back to the 154 game schedule that was essentially the for a majority of Major League Baseball. And so the Braves have Javi Lopez and David Justice, who have been suspended. So they actually worked out well. They did not get a lot of players suspended. Braves are really one of the two teams that are probably the favorite to win the National League, because they got Greg Maddux, John Smoltz, Tom Glavine, Steve Avery. McMichael is not so bad. Mark Werlers is a very good closer. Kent Merker and Brett Klontz, these are two great setup guys. I've also changed the statistics to basically put it back in a stopper role, because what I'm doing is trying, because the PEDs are gone, I'm going to try to manipulate the numbers. In my test, it hasn't gone so well, but I'm going to try to manipulate the numbers in order to lower home runs and lower strikeouts, because the strike zone will be called according to armpits to knees. So no more of this tight strike zone. So yeah, they got that. And Stanton and Bedrosian are very good middle relievers too. Now their lineup isn't the greatest, but they got Charlie O'Brien, McGriff, Mark Lemke, who I believe, what was Mark Lemke's big claim to fame? I think he never got hit by a pitch. I think he had like a long record of never getting hit by a pitch. Chipper Jones is now shortstop, but he should be a third baseman. However, Jeff Blauser is just what they want. I mean, this guy's a shortstop, but yeah, I don't know what to do. I really don't. I try to skew it, but I don't want to skew it too much. You know? I don't want to skew it too much, so if I put him up to 144, maybe 82, 133, and I say he's 171 here, so then he's a shortstop. I mean, Chipper Jones did come as a shortstop, but and you can see his real life stats. He didn't really come aboard till 1995, but you know, this is out of the park baseball. There's expansion, so Chipper Jones probably would, if there was an expansion with 4 teams, would probably be promoted earlier. Yeah, see, and here's the shortstop here. Oh, that's why. So he's got more experience at shortstop than he does at third base. So if I go to 150, He is young, and I like to give these guys young, and I go... Okay, now they flipped. All right, so I'm happy with that. Marquise Grissom, he was always one of my favorites, too. He was a great player. I love players back in the late 80s, early 90s, because before the steroid era hit and everybody was banging home runs, like Barry Bonds would hit close to 40 home runs, but he would be hitting close to 40 doubles, about 10 triples, and he was stealing bases. He was an all-around player. He was probably one of the all-around greatest players ever. And then it just took a big hit, and everybody just went for the dingers. Ryan Klesko, he was always a good player, always killed by injury. Now Baltimore, and I think what we'll do here, I'll just go to the front office here, and we'll do the owner. Let's see if I could just, can I just keep on scrolling down? So you got Peter Angelos, I would say he's a polarizing figure in Baltimore sports, but I always thought he was, I always thought he was sort of a decent owner. He did what he could. Oh, he wants to extend Cal Ripken. Of course he does. But he always tried to do a decent job with the ownership. He just couldn't compete. And now at Washington in that area, it's harder for him to compete. He's not the worst owner. All right, you got the Red Sox. John Harrington, 58, took over for Yawkey, Miss Yawkey, who was the owner, and she passed away. Chicago White Sox, here we go. Now, I got rid of all the old owners because Bob Costas cleaned house, right? He said, that's it, PEDs, and here's the owners that have taken this to a new have taken this to a new low. So he banned a bunch of owners, and one of them was Reinsdorf in Chicago, and he replaced him with Michael Jordan. So Michael Jordan, at the age of 32, has quit basketball and now owns the Chicago White Sox. He is also, there he is. He should be a right fielder. You're a right fielder. He is also in AAA, so I got to keep an eye on him to make sure that he does not get traded or anything, which is part of the thing that really ticks me off, where you can't say, you can't stop the computer from waving and getting rid of players. So, all right, so Michael Jordan is now the owner of the Chicago White Sox, but he is not the best owner, because they got rid of the Tribune Company, because Bob Costas also said, no naming your stadiums after these stupid banks and Petcos and all this kind of stuff. You need to have named stadiums that bring personality to your city and has camaraderie within the community. So, also owners cannot be conglomerates. So it has to be individual owners or part of an oligarchy. So the Chicago Cubs decided to sell to Bill Murray. Yes, that Bill Murray. Ghostbusters fame, What About Bob, Scrooged, and other delightful Stripes, and a bunch of weird movies towards the end of his career. Garfield. I would not want to hear that. 44 years old. Evanston, Illinois. Big Cubs fan. He always been a big Cubs fan. And actually, Bill Murray actually owns, or did until recently, owned minor league baseball clubs. So he really is a baseball fan. The Cincinnati Reds. Yep, Marge Schott. I don't know if any of you guys remember Marge Schott. She got really railroaded out of the league. People said, it was a hearsay kind of thing. Oh, I heard she said this about black people. I heard she said this about this. And she did say some stupid crap, but, none of the real horrible stuff was ever put in line for her. And she also had a big dog called Shotzi, and I think he was a Saint Bernard. Of course, she is controlling. She's very cheap. She's hands off in the involvement of the club, but she wants profit. That's all that Marge Schott wants. If I'm wrong on that, let me know. If she's like hands on, which I don't really think she was, she would let her dog on the field, and the dog would take a dump right on the field. But she was always lenient with her managers, to tell you the truth. Davey Johnson, Pete Rose. I think Tony Perez is the only one that she really had a problem with, but that was due to the new general manager. The new general manager is the one that got rid of Tony Perez. Cleveland Indians, the owner here is Richard Jacobs. He was, he's a guy that's usually forgotten. He did his best, but he was just not a good baseball owner. And he just couldn't bring the Indians to that next level. Colorado Rockies, Jerry McMorris is still there. Nobody to really speak of. Detroit Tigers is the Little Caesar. The Little Caesar Pizza? Pizza. Mike Ilitch, who was always, he's a very personable, he's an economizer, of course, and he wants profit, but he's a very understanding owner, and he was a very good owner. I mean, Detroit, probably one of the best owners Detroit ever had. Now, here it comes. Here's what happened in this little universe, is that the U.S. government told Fidel Castro if he got rid of communism and put in some type of republic parliament, they'd give him a baseball team. And that's exactly what happened. And Fidel Castro jumped at it, and there is no more communism in Cuba. So Fidel Castro, at the age of 68, owns his own Major League Baseball team. And I'm going to go through everybody on this one. Team record. Don't suck completely or I'll shoot you behind the wall. So, acquire player closest man, Chuck Carey. We'll talk about Chuck Carey. I like Chuck Carey. And he hired Pete Rose Sr., who is no longer banned from baseball. How do you like that, guys? So nobody's banned from baseball. Bob Costas lifted the archaic gambling clause on baseball. And you will see, guess who you'll see go to the Hall of Fame? Yes, Shoeless Joe Jackson will finally get his reign in the Hall of Fame. Raul Castro, many of you that keep up with current events know that Raul Castro is the younger brother of Fidel, and is now the leader of Cuba. And so, yeah, we got a couple of guys you guys may not know. Tommy Helms, he was a very good infielder. Stan Williams, not a bad pitching coach, but I think he was part of Pete Rose's staff in Cincinnati. I have tried to make I've gone over a lot of this stuff. Like all these guys, most of these guys are actual former ball players that I've retired and personally made them managers of different teams. And I also had to make up teams for the new team's minor league system. So we got the Veritantes Lawbreakers, which are in Cuba, New Orleans Penguins, Dayton Dragon, so there's Dayton, Ohio, Florida Fire Frogs, which didn't come around for a long time after, but I had the uniforms and the logos for them. Yuma Scorpions, West Virginia Black Bears, and the Arizona Sugar Kings. I'll have to go over these. These guys, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They got, yeah, that might not be good. They have 7 minor league squads. All right, I'm going to have to go over that, but that'll be for next episode. All right, so that's the Havana Sugar Kings. I'm really looking forward to that. I love that. I love their logo too. Let's look at Chuck Carey in one of my old. I think it was Out of Park 15. One of my old things. This guy became a hero in the postseason, and so I've always had a nice nostalgia when it comes to Chuck Carey. And so look at his uniform. See the uniform? Oh, that's beautiful, isn't it? I really like how that shines. This is from a guy called Texas Ranger in the Out of the Park baseball forums, who does really good work. Lineups, of course, has got Pete Rose Jr., Mike Felder. He used to be he's San Francisco most of the time, wasn't he? He's in the San Francisco. Oh no, Milwaukee and San Francisco. And then Eric Davis, Eric the Red, who was in Cincinnati, but he had a lot of injury problems, like real major injuries, like internal injury problems. So hopefully he'll stay healthy. He does have I think he is fragile. Yeah, he's fragile. So I hope he stays healthy. I really do. I hope he makes a comeback. Eric Davis at the age of 32. was good friends with Daryl Strawberry, if you know that name. Then we got the Hawaii Islanders, and look at this color scheme. Look at that. Look at this Hawaiian Islanders. That's pretty cool. I like that one. Front office for the Hawaii Islanders. Now we shouldn't have Jackie Robinson's number should not be retired at this point in time in history. Front office for the Hawaii Islanders. The owner, Hank Rogers. I don't know. Most of you guys will probably know it. It's a gaming channels. Hank Rogers, the man who created Tetris. I like how it looks like he is in Hawaii right at this time. Now, Havana has a ballpark that is very conducive for home runs. So it's humid and it's a smaller ballpark. So Castro wants to have those home runs. Hawaii is quite the opposite. It's a big ballpark. There it is, team settings. So Les Murakami Stadium, which was there to begin with. The capacity is only 32.8 right now. But as you can see from the distance, 340, 420 in center. You got a nice wall heights of 15 going into 12. So we calculated that out. There's going to be a good number of doubles, but home runs overall. It's not a major pitching park, but it's good enough. It's good enough. So they're going to have some good pitchers coming out of here. Right now they got Charlie Huff, who's 47 years old. So 47-year-old Charlie Huff. Let's see if he can have one more. I still had like a database with a bunch of guys from Out of the Park Baseball when I did this to begin with, going through their forums. And I got guys like Dan S. Smith, who was a guy in the forums that wanted to be a player. So Dan, yeah, he's here. I think. Wait, is that a real player? No, I'm sorry, that is a real player. But I think I have some. I think I have some fake players here. Gary Templeton, Jay Cow, who was a former Angel. So they don't have any really good guys. They are vying for free agents just like everybody else. And of course their front office. Like I said, I try to keep it. Like friends, like what real coaches do. Coaches, like if they played together with somebody, they usually put them on their staff. So Ken Maka, who is a manager in real life down the line, Mike Witt, Bob Horner played with Dale Murphy, and Dale Murphy, of course, is one of the biggest Atlanta Braves stars of all time, 2-time MVP, one of the Hall of Very Good. He had a lot of, I want to say back. I'm snapping. I'm sorry. I'm smacking my lips. He had a lot of back injuries, I want to say, or leg injuries. I think it's back. I think his back was going out. And Yataka Fukumoto. So Herc Rogers got Yatuka Fukumata just to get like these Japanese players. So you might see some Japanese players coming in. And we'll see if they can actually come aboard, and we could get. I'm not going to have fake players make the major leagues right now. I may change that in the future, but for the first couple of years, we're going to say no. We're only real players are going to be able to get on the major league roster, because I also do have the NCAA, the college, and I just set up a really. League home screen. What is their schedule? Is their schedule set up? Great. Okay, damn it, their schedule is not set up. $56 games, 1st of March. And at league schedule. Available action. Generate fictional. Okay, schedule generated. Yay. And I just made a really... come on, man. A really weak kind of 3 divisions, 8 teams each, and I kind of split them up. I got the Central Division, South Division, North Division on both teams. So it's really just a dumbed down version of the NCAA. And this is just for like real-time players that come into the draft. which now with the database, I think they do come in when they're like 17, 18, 19. And they may say, no, I'm not going to sign, and I'm going to college. So that's why I have the college teams here. So, but most of these college guys, most of the people in college, like these guys, they might get drafted, but they'll be stuck in the minor leagues. They'll just be filler. So that's good enough for me. Now, Major League Baseball Hawaii Islanders. So we go to the Houston Astros. Houston Astros have Drake McClain Jr. I think he sold the team before they got really, really good. Here got General Manager Bob Watson, Terry Collins, Mel Stoudemire Jr., Steve Henderson. So two good coaches there. Stoudemire Sr. and Steve Henderson are very good coaches. Let's see if they can prove to success. I think I did not look at all these guys. Baltimore has a horrible manager, Phil Regan. He should be fired. Mike Flanagan, former longtime pitcher. Boston Red Sox have Kevin Kennedy, another guy that should never have been a manager, but I think he was like a part-time Baseball Tonight, Major League Baseball Tonight announcer. But you got Jim Rice as the hitting coach, longtime Red Sox, and Dan Touquette, who's been bounced around the league, but everywhere he goes, he does a very good job as a general manager. The Chicago White Sox has Gene Lamont, another half-ass manager. Ron Schooler is not a very good GM, so they're going to have issues there. But you see, I got Terry Francona. He's down the Birmingham Barons, which he was in 1995. Later, he would go on to be the Red Sox and the Cleveland Indians, or the Phillies. The Phillies first. I keep on forgetting he was a horrible Phillies manager. But he'd come around, and now he's still I think he's still the Indians manager. Cubs, Riggleman, got Billy Williams, long-time player, worked with Ernie Banks. Let's play two. So you got Billy Williams, Fergie Jenkins, another long-time Chicago Cub hero. Ed Lynch, not a horrible general manager. He was very good with the draft. I don't think he was good with transactions or, getting rid of players before they were up. I think he was a little too loyal to his players, but he did draft well. He'll probably be gone. The Reds, Davey Johnson, Jim Bowden, very good. Ray Knight, Hal McRae, all these guys, great coaches, managers. Davey Johnson, of course, 86 Mets. Cleveland Indians, John Hart, Mike Hargrove, the human rain delay. Buddy Bell, Charlie Manuel, who would go on to be one of the best Philly managers of all time. And what do we got? Colorado, Don Baylor. I never had like a bad thing about Don Baylor. He was always a hitting coach, first and foremost. So his managing, he was pretty easy style, but he didn't really need to be one of these firebrands. Every team he went to, guys took care of themselves. They had a lot of veteran presence. Art Howe, the hitting coach, he was a longtime manager. The Tigers, Sparky Anderson. Yep, Sparky's still around, only 61 years old. And again, Out of the Park Baseball will just retire him, and I'll never see him again. Usually, like Don Zimmer, he went to become the Yankees' longtime bench coach. He always gets retired way too soon. So that's the Detroit Tigers. And the Houston Astros, Bob Watson, Terry Collins, who would later become a horrible Mets coach. And let's see. Then we got the Kansas City Royals, where I think George Brett retired last year. So you got Herc Robinson, Bob Boone, a very good manager, I thought. Gene Mauch, who was not a very good manager, but was a very good coach. And they have their owner as David Glass, who I think is just sold the team, actually. Maybe this year. Long time owner of the Kansas City Royals, giving it up for finally. Good going, David Clay. I say, hey, you got a World Series out of it, man. So, Los Angeles Angels, Gene Autry. And he's usually the first owner to die. You can see he's 87 years old. He's usually the first one. And he gets replaced with Jackie Autry, his wife. For the personnel on here, Marshall Lashman, who you got the Lashman brothers that are two managers in this league. And yeah, I don't know how they got their jobs, but they must have just been personable guys. Rod Carew, the hitting coach, long time. He's an Angel, but he's basically a twin. But see what he can do. And yes, I made the Angels Los Angeles Angels, not the Anaheim Angels, not the California Angels. We're just the hell with that. We're going with LA. That's it. And then you got the Dodgers, which still have Tommy Lasorda. He's usually the second manager to retire. And hopefully I could do and just put Bill Russell up there as from the bench coach to the manager, because that's what Bill Russell was doing this time. He was learning from Tommy Lasorda. Didn't do well, but hey. And the owner here is Peter O'Malley, one of the most hated people, especially my mother, who loved the Brooklyn Dodgers. Then we have the Mexican City Diablo Rojos, who are actually a Mexican team. So it was very easy to find their logos. And they are Alfredo Harpalo. His brother Carlos is one of the world's, I think in 1995, his brother was like the second richest man in the world. I can't be too sure of that, but I think he was. I think Carlos was way up there. So Alfredo, the little brother, just gets a baseball team and says, the señoritas don't like me as much as Carlos, but I got a baseball team now. So a very good first owner for the Mexico City Diablo Rios. As for their team, Bobby Avila. Bobby Avila, 70 years old, is general manager. Bobby Avila was the first successful Mexican-American baseball player. He began in the 40s with the Mexican team in Veracruz. I think he became the mayor of Veracruz and was in the Mexican legislation for a while as well. But he's always been like a diplomat and an ambassador for baseball in Mexico. In fact, Fernando Valenzuelos, who is the most popular guy that ever came from Mexico, of course, Fernando time, from the Los Angeles Dodgers in the 80s, always said that, everybody in Mexico, every ball player in Mexico knew Bobby Avila. He was the trendsetter. He was the first great player, and everybody admired him. So I thought, hey, the first guy to actually be the general manager of a Mexican Major League Baseball team should be Bobby Avila. Manager, Manager Mario Mendoza. Now, Mendoza is the Mendoza line, because Mario Mendoza, that was his batting average. His batting average was, career-wise, always hovering around 200. It's 215. So this is the Mendoza line. Can you get above the Mendoza line? So he's going to be the first manager. I think he was a manager in real life too for the minor league teams. And so then I just put Aurelio Rodriguez, who is another good player from, I think, the 70s or late 60s. Yep, late 60s, 70s. And he was of California and Detroit. He was probably the first successful Major League Baseball player that had longevity. As you can see, he was in the league for, well, how many years? 35, 19 to 35. Geez, yeah. So, yeah, 15 years. So hey, why? He should be the bench coach, first bench coach of the Diablos Rojos. And Diablos, they have a very good minor league setup. So they got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They got 6, which I think should be the case. So the Pioneer League, for some reason, goes below the Arizona League. I never thought that would be the case. But the Pioneer League is up near Montana, Washington, and the Western, what do they call them in Canada? Provinces? Western provinces of Canada. So they're both developmental leagues. And then, of course, you have the Tri-City Valley Cats, which are now Houston. So the New York Penn League and the California League, Texas. So I try to make sure that these guys had their big teams in the Western. So Mexico City and Havana would have Pacific Coast League, Texas League, California League. Those would be everything else. I would plug in whatever I could. Well, no, they would have the Arizona League, of course, because you'd have the Gulf Coast League for the Eastern clubs. All right. So that's Mexico City. And who did they get? Let me see. They've gotten Ben Rivera. Oh, I remember Ben Rivera from Philly. Oh, he was so frustrating. And lineups, Kelly Gruber. Oh, and this will strike a chord with some of you who played backyard baseball. Pablo the Secret Weapon Sanchez. 5'2", 130 pounds. Let's see if Pablo Sanchez, the hidden weapon, can actually make the Major League squad. Willie Wilson, a longtime Royal, I want to say. Yep, a longtime Royal. And Lance Blake and Ship. No one really. It looks like they got some outfield depth. Next team is the Milwaukee Brewers, who I did put back in the NL. So I got them back in the NL East. BJ Surhoff. I remember BJ. He should have a really good year, especially with the lower home runs. I think he has. Yeah, he was becoming a double machine. He had like the double machine. I wonder if he will. I wonder if he's 4-star player. Home run power, gap power, contact. Yeah, he should be hit. Let's see if he'll hit 300. Front office for them. Bob Uecker. Yes, got rid of Bud Selig. No more commissioner, no more owner. Bud Selig takes an early retirement. And the voice of the Milwaukee Brewers, Bob Uecker, just a bit outside, is now the owner of the Milwaukee Brewers. Wonderful. I love it. And he's only 61 years old. Boy, he's been hanging on. He's still alive. Sal Bando, former catcher. Phil Garner, who did bounce around the league. He was a manager for a long time. Milwaukee, Minnesota. Tom Kelly, longtime Minnesota Twin. Terry Ryan, longtime general manager. And Ron Gardenhire, of course, the bench coach, who would later become the manager when Tom Kelly retired. Owner, of course, Carl Pohlad. He's getting up there in age. He might pass away. And the Montreal Expos, who will never go anywhere. They got Claude Brachet. So no Labatt Blue taking over the team. Manager Felipe Alou. We love Felipe. Kevin Malone and Tommy Harper is the hitting coach. And I think I thought they had somebody down the minor leagues that was going to be a manager someday. New York Yankees, Buck Showalter's still there. Willie Randolph is the bench coach. Gene Michael, before what's his name, Cashman got in the way. Owner Billy Crystal, because he loves the Mick. So the Mick did die, I believe, in 95, maybe early 96. And Billy Crystal, of course, big Yankee fan. Probably the biggest celebrity baseball fan. I know Bill Murray owns a couple of teams in Love Cup, but Billy Crystal really loves the Yankees, and he really loved Mickey Mantle. Every time there's a baseball documentary that centers around New York, Billy Crystal is in it. So I like to see that. I like to see that happen. I want to see how he does it. He's understanding. He's very generous, normal involvement, and he wants to win. So that should be good. We'll see if the Yankees can make a comeback just like they did in real life. The Mets will have Fred Wilpon. I know. Sorry, Mets fans. Oh my God, he just looks like the Crypt Keeper. Too much. Stop sucking that lip in. Dallas Green is the manager. Joel McElwain. Both of these guys horrible in their given time. Dallas Green's a great general manager, not so great as a manager. And we have the Oakland Athletics, who have Tony La Russa still and Sandy Alderson. Alderson would go on to the Mets. We got Carney Lansford there, longtime third baseman for him. Dave Duncan, one of the best pitching coaches ever, probably just behind Leo Mazzone when it comes to pitching. And the owner here is Stephen Schott. For the Phillies, we have Bill Giles. And we have Lee Thomas, Jim Fregosi. Oh, Jim Fregosi. Boy. Well, yeah, I mean, he got us there in 93. But, again, what are you going to do? Mitch Williams, Joe Carter smacks that home run. Heartbreaking. Let me see. So we got Phillies, Pirates, Jim Leland, that's right, who would later go on to fame for like the breakup and win a World Series of the Florida Marlins later in the decade. Cam Bonifay, underrated GM for what he actually had to deal with during his time. And Kevin McCatchy, one of the youngest owners in the league. I think he might be the youngest, 32 years old. Portland Beavers. You go, who the hell? The Portland Beavers? I just made up a name. JT Carlton. I like Steve Carlton. So JT Carlton, I made that up. Got rid of Herzaga? Whatever. And so this is the Florida Marlins. So now they are. You see Brian Harvey. Look, nice Portland team. Oh, I like those uniforms. Very nice. Kind of up to date, but a little bit old style as well. And the personnel still here are from the Florida. Dave Dombrowski, Renee Lashman, Bob Brenly as the bench coach. Santiago, Bruce Bocci, who's been around and just retired last year. Randy Smith, who unfortunately, I believe Randy Smith is the one. Is he traitor? Maybe it's not Randy Smith. I thought one of the San Diego guys. Oh, maybe it was Kevin Towers that died of a heart attack too young. There's Kevin Towers, the scouting director. The gunslinger. I think he's the one that died early. Owner for the Padres is Tom Warner. So, San Francisco owner is Peter McGowan. Boy, he looks very 80-ish in that photo. I should update that. Bob Quinn, Dusty Baker, who gets a lot of slack for being an old-time guy, can't compete in the sabermetrics and the Nationals. I think Dusty Baker was the Nationals manager, but the being the Nationals manager, he couldn't get things done. Yeah, it was Dusty Baker. Yeah, it was. Okay. And so he took a lot of flack. Or was he Cincinnati? And then Bobby Bonds is the hitting coach. All right. Bobby Bonds there with his son. Seattle Mariners. Woody Woodward. Lou Piniella. Lou. Let's see if he can win a lot of games. Owner here, of course, Nintendo. Hiroshi Yamauchi. Owner of Nintendo, and he's very hands-off because he doesn't care. He just wants extreme profit. I don't care if you guys win. St. Louis Cardinals, August Bush III, and his manager is Joe Torre. Let's see if Joe Torre actually becomes, because St. Louis, you look at St. Louis's team, not so good. I really loved Ken Hill. And I did like Danny Jackson, but I really liked Ken Hill. But Ken Hill, I think he's injury prone. Now he's normal, but I think he was. Tom Hankey, of course, is the stopper, but he is 37 years old. The lineup you can see: Pagnazzi, Mark Sweeney, Pena Zeal. You got Ozzie Smith at the twilight of his career. He's 30. Oh no, he's 40 here. But you really have a good. I really liked Gilkey Langford. John Mabry, not so much, but Gilkey and Langford were a nice 1-2 punch here when it came to batting third and fourth for St. Louis. So maybe they could get something done. Or maybe Joe Torre get fired, and we'll see. And maybe the Yankees manager will get fired. The Rangers owner is George W. Bush, because George Bush has basically stated, I ain't going to run for president. I'm going to strategize and I'm going to get this team done to the World Series. That's what I'm going to do. All right, so in the personnel, Johnny Oates, Doug Melvin, Bucky Dent is the bench coach. Yes, that Bucky effing Dent right there. I'm trying to look here. Butch Wagner, he was an old-time catcher. A lot of old-time catchers become managers. And you'll probably catch one of these guys that I'm not catching where you go, oh my God, that guy was down there? Yep, during this time, that guy was down in the minor leagues managing. Oh, Toronto has way too many too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, I'm going to have to change the minor leagues before I go on to anything else. The Toronto Blue Jays, of course, Pat Gillick and Cito Gaston. What a duo that was. Gene Tenence, Galen Cisco, and Larry Hizzle. That was a great squad. And 94 screwed them up because I think they could have made it again. And Peter N. Hardy, 78 years old. I never got a picture of him, but he was the Blue Jay, I think. Oh no, Toronto's the ones that got Labatt's, not Montreal. So yeah, these guys got taken over by Labatt's, or like the parent company of them. And then finally, the Washington Nationals come in as an expansion team, and Ted Lerner, who actually celebrated. I think Ted Lerner was alive, and he did celebrate. Did he celebrate the World Series? I'm not sure. Maybe it was his son. But Frank Robinson and Joe Gargiola Jr. And Ivan Calderon. Oh, Dan Gladden, Steve Balboni. These guys, Larry Sheets. These guys have a lot of. Wait a minute, Larry Sheets. I think I have him still active. Uh-oh. Look at that. See, I get to. Larry Sheets. Aha! No. You need to retire, buddy. I can't have you playing and being a manager, too. Whoa. That was... right. So, now, if we look at anything else, before we go on to anything, as you can see the disable list, I took all the suspended players, and if I suspend them, they still keep a spot on the roster, which is a big pain in the butt. So what I have to do is I have to suspend them for 154 games, but I also have to give them a 6-month injury as well. So Darren Dreifart for Washington is suspended for the year. Carlos Delgado and Roberto Alomar, a Hall of Famer there, Roberto Alomar, he is suspended for the year, PEDs. Texas, Kenny Rogers, the gambler. Ivan Rodriguez, another Hall of Famer. Dean Palmer and Juan Gonzalez. Juan Gogon, right? Juan Gonzalez, big prolific home run hitter during that time. St. Louis, Palacios, Rene Arocha, and Brian Jordan, who was also doing double time as a cornerback for the Atlanta Falcons. The Mariners, Randy Johnson got nailed on the PEDs. Jeff Nelson, Edgar Martinez, Alex Rodriguez, Ken Griffey Jr., and Jay Buhner. So these guys are not going to do well this year. But they got this young guy that I brought in a little early called Ichiro Suzuki. Can Ichiro get 4,000 hits in the major leagues? That I want to see. Right now he's only a 2-star, but he is a 4.5-star prospect. He doesn't have the power, but we'll see if he can get there. San Francisco Giants, Dave Burba, Bautista, Glenn Allen Hill, and Solomon Torres. San Diego, Scott Sanders, and Ken Caminiti. Of course, Ken Caminiti had problems with a lot of stuff, cocaine especially, and it destroyed his heart. And San Francisco, you could see, guess who's not? Guess who didn't get hit? Barry Bonds did not get hit. So Barry Bonds could be the best player to come out of this playthrough. Right, and San Diego, Portland, which is Florida, Gary Sheffield, of course. Capra is actually injured, so he got elbow contusion in like January. But Gary Sheffield is nailed for PEDs. Pittsburgh Pirates really came away real well. Only this guy, Stratus Distrata, who was a heavy home run hitter for Florida for a couple of years. He was nailed for it, but they still have, like, I mean, they have, the one thing about Pittsburgh is they kept a lot of players around, like Jeff King and Jay Bell. They were around Pittsburgh for quite a while. And Don Slott, I think, was as well. Was Don Slott? Yeah. I mean, they keep players around. If they're cheap and they can get things done, they'll do it. Denny Neagle is another guy that I think they kept around for quite a while. Got John Lieber, who was one of my odd favorites for Philadelphia. Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, who got nailed here? Well, Darren Dalton did. Lenny Dykstra, of course, he's an idiot, so of course he's getting nailed. Dave Hollins was a surprise, and Bobby Munoz, a starting pitcher who really didn't make much. But they do have Mike Lieberthal, who's coming up probably a year earlier. Got John Crook, Charlie Hayes, Mickey Morandini. I love Mickey Morandini, and Jim Eisenreich. I remember Jim Eisenreich. I believe he had epilepsy. I think he had epilepsy or something in that way. He had a very odd disease. Philadelphia, Oakland had Mark McGuire, Troy Neal, who was really a scumbag. He did something with his ex-wife, like really screwed her over. Scott Brocious, Geronimo Boroa, another big guy. As you can see here, he had some promise. Carlos Reyes, Mark Akra, and they still have the Ricky and Stan Javier, which I think is a great. These guys are great. And then they got Ruben Sierra, who I always liked. I always liked Ruben Sierra. We'll see how he could do being a right fielder. He's only 29 years old, but he became a DH real quick because he just wasn't good. And then this guy, Todd Van Poppel, one of the worst first picks ever. And another guy I really liked out of here. These guys have three pitchers I really have liked. I always liked the ace, Dave Stewart, who became a pitching coach. Rick Honeycutt, I just liked his name. And Ron Darling, who was came from the Mets and went to Oakland at the apex of his career. And then now he is with Keith Hernandez calling ball games. New York Mets, Todd Hundley, that SOB. I'll never tell you the story about Todd Hundley, but yeah, the heck with him. And then they got Brett Saberhagen, who came from Kansas City. Brett Saberhagen was known, as you can see from his stats, he was known for having like off years with Kansas City. Like every odd year he would be horrible. Bill Pussfire, this guy had bipolar disorder. And so he's a little sketchy. Jeff Kent, Bobby Bonilla is still playing. Is Bobby Bonilla fragile? Yes, he is. So we'll see if Bobby Bo. I have to give him a huge contract. And Bobby Bo, we'll see. Kevin McReynolds, he's a Mets favorite. He's always been. Joe Orsulic, he was a good player too. I think he was mostly with Montreal. No, Baltimore. He was a Baltimore guy. Now, the Mets and the Yankees. Steve Howe, of course, Cocaine Howe. Jim Leyritz, of course, he alcoholic. Pat Kelly and Darryl Strawberry. Oh, Darryl. You just couldn't stay clean, Darryl, buddy. And another player, Jimmy Key, he was a long-time Toronto Blue Jay. Blackjack McDowell, a long-time Chicago White Sox, so I can't wait to see that. Andy Pettitte got called up. But, there he is. Mariano Rivera got called up, but he's not the closer because he is still developing. Yep, 2.5 stars. He's going to be a 5-star pitcher. Don Mattingly. All right, Mr. Yankee is Donnie Baseball. Not Mr. Yankee. Donnie Baseball is still here, as is Wade Boggs. So they got that. And then Derek Jeter why he get called up? He's only 2 stars. Maybe he'll get pushed down. But then they got Bernie Williams and Paul O'Neill. So they have they have their basic they're good players in the major leagues right now. I think the only guy they don't have is Kevin Elster, former long-time Met, and then Obedy McDowell, longtime Ranger. I like Obedy McDowell just because his name's Obedy. Posada, there he is. Posada's there. He's only 1 overall, so he's got time to develop. And we have the Montreal Expos. Who we got here? Just Luis Aquino. That's it. Just a 1.5 star pitcher. They, I think, brought up. No, they haven't. Okay, Roberto Kelly. They got Roberto Kelly, another favorite. He was a longtime Yankee. Moises Alou, playing for his dad. Darren Fletcher. I always liked Darren Fletcher as a catcher. A left-handed batter. Boy, he would really just scatter hits against right-hander. But they don't have. We got Cliff Floyd here. But there's Vladimir Guerrero. One of my all-time favorite hitters right there. This guy, I think he hit a home run when somebody bounced a slider to the plate. And then another player I really liked was Jose Vidro. Jose Vidro is a nice little scrappy player. And I like scrappy players. I like Jose Vidro, Placido Polanco. I like those scrappy guys. Super Joe McEwen, if people remember the Mets. Eckstein, David Eckstein, whose daughter, by the way, is the voice of Ahsoka in Star Wars, The Clone Wars, and Star Wars Rebels. I bet you didn't know that. So David Eckstein's daughter is a voice actor for the Star Wars universe. Where were we? Montreal, Minnesota Twins. Minnesota Twins. Here is a big one. Kirby Puckett. Kirby Puckett got nailed for PEDs, and he's 34 years old, so who knows if he'll make a comeback. Pat Mahomes, that name might seem familiar because his son is now the quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs. Yep, this is the father of Mahomes. Munoz and Shane Mack. Shane Mack was, I think he was good friends with Kirby Puckett too. These guys. Kevin Tapani, he was always a decent pitcher. He was always a good number 4 guy. Because I think he would pitch. Yeah, he would pitch 30 games a year. Brad Rackey, he didn't pan out, but he had talent. So maybe it'll come to fruition. Chuck Knobloch, he got the yips when he went to the Yankees. That was a shame. But this guy is not going to be a home run hitter, but he can steal bases. He could bat 300. He can hit triples and doubles. And that's what I want to see. I want to see what players rise to the top. Barry Bonds is going to be there because Barry Bonds can hit doubles. Barry Bonds can hit triples. Barry Bonds can walk. Barry Bonds can steal bases. And Barry Bonds can hit 300, probably 320. But and he'll still hit 30 to 35 home runs. And he might be one of the only players that hit over 40. But I want to see what other players come to fruition because all these other players are going to bat like Tom Bernansky. He's going to bat about 240 with 15 home runs. Those are going to be the power hitters. 15, 20 home runs. Minnesota Twins, Milwaukee Brewers. 2 of the Australians got nailed. Graham Lloyd and Dale Neeson along with Jose Valentin. And they have John Jaha. I remember him being a big sort of a power hitter, double hitter. Well, a doubles hitter. And BJ Surhoff, I really think he's going to be really, really good. I'll have to keep an eye on it for him. Steve Sparks. Oh, his nickname is Phone Book, isn't it? Oh, it didn't came. Yeah, this guy. I remember he had a bet where he tried to tear a phone book in half, and it did not work out for him at all. But he is a knuckleball pitcher as well. Yep, knuckle curve, knuckle, and he throws a slider as well. Milwaukee Brewers, Mexico City. Well, of course, they got nobody, so I shouldn't even go past those. The Dodgers. Who's the Dodgers? Raul Mondesi. Yeah, I remember him. Omar Dal. and Pedro Estacio. All these talented pitchers. 2 talented pitchers there. Chris Gwynn, of course, Tony Gwynn's brother. Brett Butler, another one of my favorite players. Brett Butler. Now, at 95, he was supposed to go to the Mets, but the way this got set up is, no, there's no free agency. He's just sticking with the Dodgers. So that's where he's going to be. So he was before here. I didn't know he was in San Francisco for a little while. But yeah, I always thought he was like an Atlanta. He went to an American League team. Yeah, Cleveland. But Atlanta, I always thought he was mainly Atlanta, went to Cleveland for a little, and then was a Dodger. Jose Offerman, he was the guy that was traded for Pedro Martinez, actually. Or Hershiser, the Bulldog, I love him. Tom Candiotti, he has a knuckleball too. Yep, he's a knuckleball, but he's not a primary knuckleball. But I like Tom Candiotti, so he should stick around till he's about 42, hopefully. And Hideo Nomo, oh, remember him? This is his rookie year. This is going to be something. I wonder how good they'll be. Todd Worrell's a good closer as well. He's going up there. But, of course, they got the greatest catcher in the league. Not defensively, but overall. Mike Piazza will probably win like the All-Star and all the catching awards outside of defense. So they should be in the running. These guys should be in the running. Oh, Dick Schofield, old California Angel shortstop. I like seeing these older players down here. Mitch Webster, too. Wow. That's awesome. The Dodgers, the Angels. The Angels got... Sean Bosky is the only one. Former Cub. I got Chuck Finley. Of course, Chuck Finley was the guy that was married to the lady from Whitesnake. And she beat him up. Domestic violence. Violence is violence, folks. And everybody made fun of him. And it was one of those sad state of affairs where you're sitting here going, why the hell are you making fun of this guy for not hitting his wife when she was beating the crap out of him? She was horrible. So, yeah, Chuck Finley there. And then Mark Langston. Now, Mark Langston, this is Mark Langston's legacy. He's got all the Gold Glove awards. So he's got, I think all these are consecutive. 87? No, they're not. But he's got 6 Gold Glove awards, so he's a very good pitcher in that regard. Lee Smith is sticking around, and Mitch Williams, wild thing. Of course, after he gave up the home run to Joe Carter, well, you can't really stay in the league. And then Troy Percival, who had a nice little peak there as California's closer. JT Snow, Rex Hudler, who is now doing like MLB The Show. Tony Phillips was always a good one of these players I like too, as is Chili Davis. Chili Davis from Jamaica. Is he from Jamaica? Yeah, he's from Jamaica. Yep, Jamaica. One of the best player that ever came out of Jamaica. And, of course, Jim Edmonds, one of the best center fielder defensively of all time. And these guys, the Angels have the best outfield, in my opinion, in the league. First of all, they got Chili Davis, who is probably going to back up left field and right field. Got Garrett Anderson, who was a really good player. He dropped off, but he was a guy that would hit about 15 home runs. He batted about 320 all the time. Jim Edmonds, of course, was 275 hitter. He started hitting home runs during the steroids era. And Tim Salmon was the home run hitter. And he had a gun for an arm. He got outshadowed by... God, I can't remember. He got outshadowed by some right fielder that came into the league a little after his time. But he's Mr. Angel, I think. Kingfish. They call him Kingfish. But yeah, he's Mr. Angel. This guy was quite the player. Leon Durham. Holy crap, old Cubs first baseman. And Kansas City Royals. Vince Coleman. What a piece of work this jackass was. Throwing fireworks at fans, stealing people's lunches. And Rusty Meacham, Chris James. Not big players here. Felix Jose. Yeah, but the big one is Vince Coleman. Vince Coleman is out. I don't think he stole a lot of bases in the last couple of years either, though. 50, 38. But yeah, he was the big guy during St. Louis. In St. Louis's time, people thought he was the second coming. There's 145 stolen bases in single A. People were saying he was the next Lou Brock. And then he came aboard 107, 109, and then 81 started gradually going down because he did not hit as well. Johnny Damon, another in Captain Caveman there. Is this Captain Caveman? Yep, Caveman. Joe Nunley was a very good player. He had a little peak there, but didn't do it. Two twins here that went over. Gary Gaetti, he was a twin. Yeah, he was a long-time twin. Went to the Angels, now here. Gagne was a twin. Yep, Gagne was a twin, too. So these guys played together for a very long time, Gaetti and Gagne. Bob Hamlin. Bob Hamlin was one of those guys that would, he came on fire. 259, 282, hit 29, hit 24 home runs. And then he just kind of gradually just went out of favor. He just couldn't hit left-handed hitting, and he started having problems with breaking balls. Sal Fasano, he was a long-time backup catcher in the league. He bounced. He was one of those AAA players. Good, too good for AAA, can never stick in the major leagues. And then you got Wally Joyner, who was just a doubles machine. This guy's a doubles machine. And here's another one. I really want to see what he does. I bet you he's 330 and he hits about 50 doubles. That'd be awesome. Jeff Montgomery, Tom Gordon, who would become a longtime reliever. Tom Browning was good. He was a Cincinnati guy for a long time. And then Kevin Apier, who was he was in the Royals for quite a few years. How am I? Oh boy, I'm going. You know what? If you're still listening to this, you are really interested in baseball. Most of the guys are going to just click it off or say, "Hey, I'm not interested in baseball," but here's a star, a thumbs up. But if you're really one of those guys that really love baseball, you're still here after an hour and 13 minutes. The Astros, Doug Drabick, Eusebio, Jeff Bagwell, and Luis Gonzalez. That one was the surprise. Derek Bell and Jeff Bagwell, not so much, but Luis Gonzalez and Eusebio were big surprises when I did my random poll, and they got nailed for it because it's heavily weighted towards greed, high greed, low work ethic, and high controversy. So Luis Gonzalez, I don't think he's got high work ethic, high intelligence. He got 103 greed, but he's got 130 controversy. So that was just toss of the dice. He was one of those rare ones that got caught up in it. Darryl Kyle, of course, we all know the tragedy of Darryl Kyle. Died in his sleep due to a heart ailment. I think it was something about the aorta. Mike Hampton, one of the best hitting pitchers of all time. Todd Jones and Billy Wagner. So Billy Wagner got called up, but he's not overtaking Todd Jones yet. So what a freaking bullpen these guys have. Varys, Wagner, and Todd Jones. I think Varys is still good. Yeah, Varys was good. Yeah, Varys was a very good one. But they don't have the starting pitching. They got Hampton is actually he's 3.5 stars so far at 22. They might pull something up. Well, Darryl Kyle is only 2.5 stars. Shane Reynolds is the man. Swindell is going downhill. Hey, they might pull it off. They might pull it off with their bullpen. And of course, now I put them in the AL West. Of course, they have Craig Biggio, leader all time of hit by pitch, one of the greatest players ever, scrappy ball player, love him. But they're going to have to use Mike Brumley and Chris Donald. They need a first baseman, so we'll see what the heck they do. There are first basemen in the free agent pool, and they really don't have anybody else. And I don't think they have anybody in the minors. They got Bobby Abreu, so that's good. On base machine, that guy. Work ethic, not so great. He's got no fire for the game. He never did, but he was one of those sabermetric darlings, and he still is. They still go, oh, why isn't he in the Hall of Fame? You know why? Because Bobby Abreu cared about the team Bobby Abreu. That's all. Houston Astros, Hawaii, Detroit. Detroit has David Wells. David Wells, of all players, getting nailed for PEDs. That's probably because of his greed, and yeah, he has low work ethic. Not the great controversy, but that low work ethic and the greed nailed him for that. Of course, with you got these guys, Cecil Fielder, Juan Samuel, one of the Philadelphia favorites. He became a coach later, and our stolen base percentage went up really, really well. But you got Cecil Fielder, father of Prince. Of course, you got Lou Whitaker, who should be in the Hall of Fame, and he should have went in with Alan Trammell. That really ticks me off. That really ticks me off. Look at Lou Whitaker. Let's just look at Lou Whitaker. Okay? Batting stats for career. I mean, he played, I think, 2 years after this. He played 2 years after this. For a second baseman, right now, at the age of 37, he's got 22. He's got 2,300 hits. Okay, he's got 1,350 runs, 400 doubles, 65 triples, 230 home runs. Because look at him, he bangs out at an average of probably 16 home runs a year, 1,000 RBI, almost 1,200 walks. He's got 1,000 strikeouts, which is really, really good. I mean, he had some years where he kind of spiked up on that one. But really, look at his strikeout to walk percentage. It's amazing. And he wasn't a great stolen base machine, but, you know, he's still a good amount. Maybe, you know, if he stole 20 stolen bases a year, he'd be in the Hall of Fame. His career, 267, 363 on base percentage. 423 slugging, 49.8 WAR, and 115 OPS. I mean, come on. And Trammell gets that because, and Whitaker was a very good fielder, but he wasn't as good as Trammell, but he was still a very good fielder. And with the defensive metrics, you can't. I mean, they were like the double play machines during the 80s. These two. And if you look at Alan Trammell, I mean, look, he played one more year. I think he only played this 95, and then he retired. And he's a shortstop, so he's got 1,200 runs, 2,200 hits, 400 doubles, 55 triples. See what's going on here? 182 homers, 964 RBIs. He has less RBIs than Whitaker. 813 walks, less. 828, you know, he didn't strike out. He was very good with his patience and following off pitches. 227 stolen bases. And that's where it comes from. 220 stolen bases. But he also got caught 108 times. And, of course, 287, 354, 421. With a 48.1. I mean, come on. If you're going to put Trammell in, you got to put in Lou Whitaker. All right, my rant's over. And, of course, you got Kirk Gibson, the hero of the Los Angeles Dodgers, Oakland A's series. Was that the Earthquake series? I think it was. But of course, this is the one where he knew Eckersley threw that slider on that pitch count, and he went to town. One of the greatest moments in baseball history. Kirk Gibson hobbling around the bases after that home run. All right, Colorado Rockies, another Australian, which is weird. Joe Gra, Mike Muniz, and Vinny Castillo get caught for PEDs. The Rockies, I don't know. David Nied, I remember he came in with great fanfare, but he just never became much. You got Joe Girardi, former a future wonderful manager who is now the manager of the Philadelphia Phillies. We'll see how that plays out. But they also had Galarraga, which, boy, did he come alive in Colorado. Look at that. 370 average his first year, 93. 22 homers, 370 average. Unbelievable. Walt Weiss, longtime Oakland A. Ellis Burks was was a really good player. He just had a sharp decline, I think. Let me see. His real life stats. 97. I don't know. No, he really didn't have a sharp decline. He just that's weird. I mean, he was just never a phenomenal player, but boy, he can nail 30 home runs a year. And then of course, Larry Walker, Booger. That's pissing me off that the nicknames are not showing up. But 44 doubles, and this was 94 in Montreal. He is now with the Rockies. Where does it say? Extremely popular. Signed through how acquired. It doesn't say how he was acquired. History. No, it just has him with Montreal, and now he's here. Okay, he just came aboard. And he's going to have a phenomenal career unless injuries take him. Cleveland have Carlos Bayagra, Jim Thome. Oh boy, of course Joey, Albert Bell. Jeez, this guy. I remember he had a player one of the relief pitchers go through the roof to get his cork bat when it got confiscated. He never liked the thermostat above a certain degree, and one time he just destroyed the thermostat. Boy, what a nutcase. Chased kids down on Halloween in his SUV. Whoa, what a nutcase that guy was. Manny Ramirez, of course, he's a nutcase for a whole different area. Eric Plunk, one of my favorite pitchers, and of course, Dennis Martinez, El Presidente, he was a reliever, a starter, and he hung around for quite a while. He hung around for a couple more years. I think he ended in Toronto. Bud Black, a future manager, future wonderful manager. Got Sandy Alamo Jr., one of the many, many Alomars. Jose Table, I think his table setter? Joe Table, yep. Underrated relief pitcher during the time. So got Eddie Murray here, who came aboard after having a stint over in the Mets. Omar Vizquel. Omar Vizquel. I wonder if he's going to get elected to the Hall of Fame anytime soon, but I don't think so. Just from defensive metrics. But you can see he has 2 gold gloves already, 93 and 94. Let's see if he can keep that up. I like to have him have a long streak. Kenny Lofton, another one of my favorite players. What a great, phenomenal player. And he bounced around so much, and I just don't understand why. They have these guys. Cleveland's probably they're going to get rid of one of these guys. I don't know if they'll just release Dave Winfield, but you can't have Brian Giles. Actually, Brian Giles is a 4-star, but he's only 1-star now. So he's 24, and he still needs a lot of development, but they're just putting him on the squad for whatever reason. Jeremy Burnett's home run hitter. And poor Sorrento should be a first baseman, but Eddie Murray's going to take that. He's going to take that thing. And Ruben Amaro Jr., who would become a general manager for the Phillies. Cleveland. Cincinnati Reds. John Roper, little known pitcher during the time, but boy, he could throw heat. Brett Boone, Aaron Boone's brother. Kevin Mitchell, Dion Neon Sanders, which, what a prima donna that guy is. And Keith Mitchell. For the Reds, Jose Rijo, he was a long time Cincinnati Red. I think he tried to make a comeback at 38 and it didn't work out. Frank Viola, Music Man, I think? Sweet Music Viola. So Frank Viola, he was with, he had a nice little thing with Boston after he left, but he was a big-time Minnesota Twin, had much success there, then just kind of went to the Mets, then started getting just mediocre. So never got the success. He had just like a high little peak. Barry Larkin, of course. Barry Larkin, Hall of Famer. He should be getting 94 Gold Glove. He should be continuing now. So no more Ozzie Smith for the Gold Glove. Barry Larkin will probably start getting the shortstop Gold Gloves. Jerome Walton. Jerome Walton was a really talented he had a lot of tools, but he just couldn't put them all together, and that's a shame. And Lenny Harris here. Lenny Harris, boy, you want to talk about utility players, pinch hitters, pinch runners. Lenny Harris could do it all. He could play almost every position, and he was a phenomenal pinch hitter. Even not as good as Matt Stairs, but he was pretty close. He could play every position, so he could pinch hit, and you could do a double switch and put Lenny Harris at first, second, third, short. It didn't matter. Chicago Cubs, Mike Morgan, and of course slamming Sammy Sosa, who is not bleached white yet. That'll happen when he's in his 50s. Omari Talamako, a Philly. He became a Philly. I liked him. He just sucked. I liked him, but he sucked. Ryan Sandberg. This technically was his last year. A lot of back problems during this time. Howard Johnson, former Met, of course. Sean Dunston, who, if he just stayed with Chicago, I think he would have had a really good career. Brian McRae, Hal McRae's son, who had talent but just kind of never put it together after Kansas City, which is a shame. But that's how it happens. I mean, you sign a contract, you go to a different team. Sometimes it's just not a good fit, you know. And then finally, the White Sox, not finally, Wilson Alvarez, Jose De Leon, Dave Righetti. Oh, wow. Long-time Yankee. Wonderful. I love Dave Righetti. Later became a pitching coach. Jim Abbott, who only had the one hand, would put his glove on his left hand after he pitched. I don't know how he did it, but he did it to perfection. Another one of my favorite players. Robin Ventura, very good third baseman. Frank Thomas, the big hurt. I want to see what he does too. I really do. I want to see how good he is. I mean, he'll probably only hit like 30 in the low 30s for home runs, but I want to see what that average goes to. And I want to see if he gets his on-base percentage and he is constantly like 490. That would be something. Tim Raines Sr., of course, Hall of Famer. We'll see if he can stick this out. Lance Johnson is one of my favorite because he, as you can see here, is the triple king. He is the triple king of the 90s. And I think he had the highest triple count of any player from 1970 on. I think if you look him up, if you look at all the triple leaders, actually I could do that. League history. Season career leaders. Of course, got to build it up now. And career triples. Sam Crawford, of course, is number one, which I always thought he was a great player. The triples of the dead ball era were basically home runs. Because it was very hard to run home. A lot of home runs were inside the park. You couldn't beat Ty Cobb and really spread them out. Ty Cobb, by the way, no, not a horrible racist. All those stories are highly exaggerated after he died and that stump jackass made him out. Cap Anson, big racist. Who else? Tris Speaker, racist. Eddie Collins Sr., really big racist. Worked for the Boston Red Sox, who did not want black players on the team. Ty Cobb, no. He would sit with the Detroit Stars, which was a Negro League at the time. He would always play against Negro League stars. In Cuba, yes, he had fights with them. He had fights with everybody. So just because you fight a black guy does not mean you're racist against black people. He got pissed because he thought they were moving the bag further away and it wasn't regulation. But he didn't know that these guys were basically playing. A lot of the black people during the dead ball era and not the 30s where the Negro Leagues got a little bit more organized, but during the 10s where there was just kind of like a barnstorming type of league, they didn't really sit there and have grounds crew and umpires that they could have and measure things out, especially when they went to Cuba. So let me see. Brett Butler. Well, Brett Butler, yeah. And then I think Lance Johnson has to be here. He's probably just right below here. Where, Lance Johnson? George Brett. Oh, I forgot. No, George Brett. George Brett hit a lot of triples. A lot of people don't know that. Jimmy Ryan. Oh, I remember all these guys from the 1901 league. But yeah, I think during this time, I think Lance Johnson might have. So there's 118 there, and then if you look at his real life stats, 117. So yeah, he got right below. Yeah, he really, like in '96, 21 triples with the Mets. I remember that year specifically because I just thought that was phenomenal. He hit 333, played 160 games, hit 21 triples, and people were just calling him the triple guy all the time. It was amazing. But then he just dropped right off at the age of 34, and he lost the step, and you could see his stolen bases went down significantly. And he just, got injured, and his legs just kind of gave out on him. It's a shame. I would have liked to see what would have happened if he had 10 triples. He would have been right. He would have surpassed Brett for like the modern day triple man, and he could have had his place in history. But what are you gonna do? Okay, so Chicago White Sox, Boston Red Sox. Pena Alicia, who former Cardinal, and then of course the chemist Jose Canseco. Mike Greenwell, longtime Boston guy, not filling in for not Jim Rice, Dwight Evans. Jim Rice. So Carl Yastrzemski, then it was Jim Rice, and then it was Mike Greenwell. Of course, Mike Greenwell was not great in any regard, but he was steady. He was a steady guy. Hit near 300 all the time, and that's what I like to. I want to see people hit 300. Willie McGee, he's got the one where I think wasn't he traded in 1990? Yeah, he was traded in 1990, and he won. I think he won the batting title in the National League, even though he got sent to the American League during the waiver trade, which is one of the oddest things in history. But Willie McGahee, a really good player that I really like as well. Hit dog Mo Vaughn. I never liked that guy. I just never liked his style of play. Yeah, but that's just me. Hit 300, hit 30 home runs, but everything else about his game was just, he just had a slight peak and just never kept in shape, man. He just never kept in shape. And then he went to the Mets and he was just a big failure. Which I appreciated because I hate the Mets. But Baltimore Orioles, Kevin Brown, Alan Mills. So Kevin Brown would later become a multiple Cy Young Award winner. Did he already win one? No, he didn't. But he would win, and I think he threw a no-hitter as well. Sid Fernandez, another former Met. Ben McDonald had some good times. Jamie Moyer, one of my favorite Phillies of all time. God, will he have 15 years in the league? I doubt it. Not with out of the park baseball's engine. But we'll see if he could get up to the age of 40. Mike Mussina, of course, spent all his time in Baltimore, later went out to the Yankees and became a Hall of Famer with them. And Jesse Orosco, I believe he is the leader in games pitched of all time. I want to say he is. Of course, got Cal Ripken Jr. Another thing that this engine will not do is Cal Ripken will take a day off. 95 was supposed to be where he broke Lou Gehrig's records, but Out of the Park Baseball doesn't care about that. So unless I am personally managing the Baltimore Orioles, what will happen is, one, he might get injured, even though I think, yep, he's an Iron Man. He might get injured or day-to-day and take a day off. Or they will just give him a day off because they'll have a backup for him. And I think they do. Jeff Houston. No, Manny Alexander, who's not bad, but if starter tired. So if Cal Ripken, they have a rain out and he gets tired, he'll probably get thrown out. Harold Baines, like I said, what a horrible Hall of Fame decision that was. But what are you going to do? He sets a precedence where you got to look at a lot of players now and say, well, they deserve to be in it. Andy Van Slyke, another one of my favorite players. He played with Bonilla and Bonds during Pittsburgh's little resurgence in the 80s after their 70s. What was that? We Are Family with Willie Stargell. Brady Anderson, he was one of the guys that everybody said was on the juice, but he had like a Davey Johnson year. And Davey Johnson, of course, being the manager of the Mets, he had one of those Davey Johnson years where he hit 50 home runs in 96, and then he just went right back to normal. So when you sit here and you go, well, you could, Brady, because I remember during the time they said Brady Anderson is the guy that, you look at and you could say, look at this, steroids. But not really. It just looked like he had like some odd, freakish year. He hit 297, which is well above his, well above the 260 that he was hitting previously, and just more stuff left the yard, right? And you can't fault him for that. But then he went right back to hitting what he usually hit. So 18, 24, and this goes along with not only the steroid era, but the juice ball theory as well. And that's it. There's the Baltimore Orioles, everything. Before I go, a lot of guys are protected. I'm going to have to come back here after I take this off. I wanted to do the expansion draft, but of course I talk so much. And I apologize for that, but thanks you for sticking around if you did. Next up, we will have the expansion draft. I am going to have to go in and fix the minor leagues because you shouldn't have teams with seven minor league squads. So I'll have to fix that, make sure that we get those done, and we'll come back to the expansion draft, and we will do the first half of the season. So thank you for joining me. Get off my energy lawn.